I did their account planning. I wrote their business plans. I developed their new products, their pricing strategies. I bought all their media.
And it just paid on top of that.
Yeah, right. And they paid for everything. I marked up the things we purchased. I mean, I created a very, not lucrative in terms of creating wealth,
yes,
but creating a very nice lifestyle.
Income-wise.
A very nice lifestyle.
Yes.
In fact, the chairman of the bank asked me to buy a house. And I said, thank you, but no thank you. He said, no, Alan, you need to buy a house. Well, I've never lived in a house. I don't know how to buy a house.
Yes.
That's a commitment that I've never experienced.
Right.
So the chairman of the bank says to me, we're buying a house next week. I said, congratulations. He said, no, it's your house.
You're buying a house, yes.
He said, I said, well, what do I do? He says, you look at two and you buy one. I said, I'm not in the position to do so. He says, I know how much I pay you. You're buying a house. Do you want to start to create some wealth? So he drove over to my house. He said, where do you want to live? And let's hire a realtor in the neighborhood. And I picked the neighborhood. And we looked at 3 houses. And he crawled with his flashlight in the crawl spaces and looked.
Seriously?
Yeah, he did, the chairman of the bank.
Yes.
And he told me to buy a house between $100,000 and $115,000.
Yes.
He picked this house. It was $129,900. It was outside of my budget, but he told me this was your house. So I said, what do I do next? He hands me a card of a closing attorney. He says, next week, you go to this guy, and he's going to be your lawyer and close.
Right.
I never filled out a credit application. I don't know if we can repeat this, but at the time, I never filled out an application.
Right.
I was not approved. They didn't do a credit report.
Right.
They just told me to go buy a house. It was a character loan.
Yes.
So I went to the closing attorney, and the interest rate that I was quoted was half of what was on the closing document.
Oh, wow.
So I asked the attorney, how do I change that? And he said, well, you don't. I've been doing this for the bank for 30 years, and you can't change it. So I said, but that's not the interest rate he told me. He said, well, take it or leave it. I said, hang on one second. I called the chairman of the bank.
Yes.
I put him on the speaker, and I said, I'm at the closing attorney's office. He said, congratulations, terrific. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. I said, what was my interest rate? And he told me. I said, thank you very much. Click. He goes, okay, I'll change it.
So good. That's so good. But the chairman was actually kind of helping you.
Correct.
He could see things that you could not see, right?
He did things for me that I would have never in my wildest dreams imagined. He called up my dad and sent him a note to tell him how wonderful I was. He did things behind the scenes that he really genuinely
Was he kind of like your mentor in some way, a little bit?
In many regards. I would say he was a friend/mentor. And we grew up together, pretty much. He inherited the bank when his dad passed away, and he needed help, and he knew he needed help. And he was smart enough and mature enough to allow me to help him. And he made a choice to trust me. So that worked out to many other banks and many other real estate developers, etc. And then this one particular real estate developer that I've had as a client asked me to write a business plan to put him in the second home amenity community business. This is prior to the crash. This is when everyone was a real estate investor. You could learn how to buy real estate with no money down.
Are you talking like infomercial?
Yeah, from the president himself, from Donald Trump at Trump University.
That's right.
If you didn't live in an affluent zip code, from Carlton Sheets, you know what I mean, in the middle of the night.
That's right.
So I wrote the business plan for this real estate developer.
Yes.
He liked it. He went into that business, and he asked me to be president of the company. And the reason I tell you this story is it happened again. It happened again. Right, so he wanted me not to get rich on guarantees or fees, but to eat what I killed. So we agreed on 3% of sales. He put down on a spreadsheet that I would sell 30 home sites at an average price of $150,000. I kind of laughed and told him his biggest problem is he won't have enough inventory for me. He thought I was cute. We shook hands. We made a deal. That first year, by the time the first year was over, I sold over 550 home sites at an average price of $200,000.
Wow.
I made more money than I've ever made in my life,
Yes.
and the bulk of it still hasn't closed yet. They were contracts written that were 3-4 months out, and then he fired me.
Damn.
Because when he realized how much money he owed me,
Yes.
he immediately let me go as to avoid paying the commission.
Correct.
So now, once again, I'm a millionaire, and I just got fired.
Damn, it's like every time you can touch it, you can taste it, and boom. And then you can touch it, taste it, and boom, again.
Absolutely.
The funny thing is when I was a copywriter and I transitioned into being a marketing consultant. So similar story where clients come to me, they're desperate, that they need to grow the business.
Absolutely.
I help them turn it around. I come up with the strategies. I do the execution. I wrote the copy, do all of that.
Right.
Then what happens is I didn't get fired, but kind of that when I made them a lot of money, you
didn't get to share in that.
Yeah, I didn't get shared, and it's like I solved the marketing problem. They don't need me anymore. So I lost the client because I'm so good at what I do, and then they don't need me anymore, right? And then somehow clients always forgot. Hey, when you were,
that's right.
When you were desperate, when you were desperate, when you were not making the profit that you're making now, then I remember I was the guy who helped. But once they're successful,
that's true.
They don't remember that.
They kind of think it was them who did.
Or maybe the luck, or something magical that happened, right? It's not the marketing guy.
That's
right?
true. There was another frustration I had in the marketing business, in the advertising business, and that was, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to my clients.
Yes.
But many of them did not tell the truth. And you may ask, why would a client hire you and not tell you the truth? And the reality was they didn't share the competitive issues. They didn't share the contingent liability. They didn't really talk about the truth. They would hire us in what they wanted
to tell, the stories.
The story they wanted to tell, but we really couldn't solve the core business issue unless they were completely honest.
Right.
So to be honest, I was a little frustrated, and that's kind of why when this opportunity to take over the real estate company posed itself, I was willing to do that.
Got it.
Right, because I wanted to also, I figured that if I could run the company that I created the plan for, I could share in some of the rewards that I've created.
And it makes sense. It feels like you're kind of still in business for yourself. You're the president. You just didn't expect that they would do that.
Greedy and be so short-sighted.
My goodness.
So I took all the money that I made and I looked for my own deal. It was my first real estate development deal on my own. And I purchased 3,000 acres and a golf course 10 minutes before the crash.
Wow.
And I was able to sign, for a first-time project, a market private equity deal, an 80-20, 50-50 private equity deal, meaning the private equity firm puts up 80% of the capital, I bring 20% of the capital, and we split the profits.
Because you do the work, right?
Yeah. Correct. And that was the promote for finding the deal and getting the work done. In the course of the due diligence on the acquisition, and it was a fabulous project, the sellers got the impression they sold it too quickly. And they approached me to release the private equity and joint venture the project with them. What would that look like, I was asked. And I said, well, I'm a 50-50 partner with the private equity firm. I'll be a 50-50 partner with you.
Right.
I have one caveat, and that is I'm tired of getting fired.
Yes.
I've been fired now 4 or 5 times for producing.
What's the saying? Like, happens once, shame on me.
That's right.
Happen twice, shame on. Happen once, shame on you. Happen twice, shame on me.
Well, shame on me a lot, 4 or 5 times, because I still didn't learn.
Yes.
So this time I set out to learn, and I said, I need my equity. If we're going to release the private equity, I need my equity piece, my 50%, to vest on day 1, so that you can't fire me. I said, I'm happy to allow you to recoup your money ahead of me in the waterfall and to be paid back, and I'll just take salary, until which time we make distribution. But again, I don't want my equity, therefore I can't be abused. Well, then the crash happens. and you find out who your partners are, not when you're making money, but
when you lose money. Yeah.
when money's tight.
When shit hits the fan.
And that's how you really know who your partners are.
Yeah.
So in the course of one of the things that happened in this project is I inherited the obligation to donate 1,200 acres to the Trust for Public Land. It was my first conservation easement. But I didn't know that's what it was. It was part of the property that I acquired. So I learned about conservation there. And I learned that most conservation easements, when they're done by a local attorney who doubles as a real estate attorney, an ambulance chaser, and a divorce attorney,
The double dipping.
that your conservation easement is not necessarily the way Congress had intended it to be.
Got it.
So that was my first exposure. I worked my way out of the project
The deal,
due to the crash, and now I find myself available with nothing to do. A neighbor, a friend, lived in my community, ran an independent broker-dealer, and he was trying to grow it. He was an accounting-based or a cost-based manager. He knew that he didn't have the revenue or the marketing or the relationship skills, and he sought to hire somebody that could do that. Well, I had nothing to do, and everywhere he went, my name kept coming up as the obvious choice to help him. So again, with nothing to lose and a lot of time on my hand, I wrote their business plan pretty much for free, just for something to do. They really liked it and asked me to be their chief marketing officer. They hired me. I'm now the number 3 executive of a FINRA registered broker-dealer, an SEC registered investment advisor. I'm not a licensed.
But you're always the rainmaker.
Correct.
Right.
I was the rainmaker for this company.
Yeah.
So I was hired in the holding company level. So I was not we were in a regulated business.
Right.
But I was not selling products nor giving financial advice.
Got it.
So like everything else, all businesses operate the same. Control your cost, increase your
revenue. Yeah.
That's it. I think we tend to overcomplicate things. So in the course of learning their business, I do what I do best. I interview people, I read, I research. And what I've come to find out that it's actually, although it's an overly regulated business, it's a pretty simple business model. So I wrote their business plan and I helped their growth plans. My job was to double the size of the firm in 2 years and then do it again in 2 years. I did it in 1, then I did it again in 1.
Wow.
And in the course of doing this, I created the investment program, which ultimately became Ecovest Capital that we have today.
So let's check out the penthouse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be my pleasure.
Tell me the story.
Well, before we go, if you take a look right over there, that building right out my window is the Ritz-Carlton Residences.
Yes.
It's a lovely high-end condo project, and I was about to buy a 3-bedroom, lovely unit at the Ritz-Carlton Residences.
Right.
I saw the unit we're about to go to when it was listed for sale.
How much was it selling for? This unit.
In here?
Yes.
This was about 1.3, 1.4.
Got it.
At the time.
Yes.
And the one we're going to now was about twice the price.
Twice the price, yes.
And I felt that it was a little too expensive and I really shouldn't buy something of that, in that neighborhood.
Yes.
A good friend of mine, one of my business partners, suggested that when you're buying real estate as an investment,
Yes.
you should first, of course, buy where you want to live.
Yeah.